record numbers of undocumented immigrants enter Mexico, many from the south. Haitian migrants are among them. Most travel across the entire country, hoping to reach the United States. But U.S. border agents are deporting hundreds each month. Many deported migrants end up in Tijuana, a Mexican border city. They need homes and jobs, but those things are hard to get, especially for people with no immigration papers. In recent years, thousands of migrants have come to this emergency migrant housing site on the periphery of Tijuana called El Cañón del Alarcán, Scorpion Canyon. Most travel with small children and are seeking help. Hundreds of them now live inside this church. Each month, more migrants arrive, and the demand for housing rises. The church is running out of space. And the waters of this once natural area are increasingly polluted. Water contamination and the surging population in this canyon affect the quality of life for the migrants and others who live here.
Mi nombre es Luis Guillermo Vides, soy de El Salvador, ando con mi esposa y mi hija. En El Salvador trabajaba en construcción, empecé a hacer mi casa poco a poco, trabajando.
Along with his construction job, Luis and his wife opened a small restaurant serving pupusas, traditional Salvadoran food. One day, a group of men arrived, demanding money.
Querían una cierta cantidad de dinero que teníamos que estar pagando semanalmente.
Luis and his wife received death threats. They decided to leave El Salvador. After entering the U.S. with no papers, U.S. officials caught and deported them to Tijuana. Unable to pay the rent in the city, they moved to Scorpion Canyon.
Nos dijeron que aquí nos podían ayudar, aquí nos daban comida y todo eso, pues decidimos quedarnos, que si no era luego que nos podían ayudar con la cosa del asilo, pues la verdad es bastante difícil acá porque hay muchas personas, hay cerca de más de 1000 personas, no es fácil, o sea, al principio fue muy difícil, porque no conoce uno las personas y no tiene amistad de nada.
Luis tries his best to participate in the life of this makeshift community. He and the other migrants get along pretty well. This day, Luis plugs a hole in the wall that a rat was using to enter the pantry and take rice, corn, and oats. Luis and other migrants are allowed to stay as long as they need to, but he's worried about his daughter, who has lost 1 year of schooling. He also worries about reports of armed robberies by local thieves. So far, cartels are not a threat.
No se siente seguro porque ya han habido personas que las asaltan, personas de acá del albergue, que les quitan todo, su dinero, su teléfono, todo.
Pastor Gustavo Banda Aceves heads the church. Under his guidance, it's become a full-blown migrant shelter, and he has witnessed the dramatic population increase here in Scorpion Canyon.
Estamos en una comunidad bastante compleja. Los indicadores socioeconómicos en este lugar son muy bajos. Como tú lo puedes notar, en 2016 llegaron los haitianos, pero no solo llegaron los haitianos, sino también llegaron gente musulmanes, gente de Pakistán, gente de Irán y de todas partes de África. Y había mucha gente de Colombia, de Venezuela, de Perú, muchísimos brasileños, rusos, ucranianos, llegan todos los días a esta ciudad. Yo tengo ya 30 años en esta comunidad, trabajando para ayudar a esta comunidad y la verdad no ha avanzado mucho. Las calles no se han pavimentado, ha sido muy poco el desarrollo de esta comunidad. Y alguien me preguntaba, ¿por qué te has asentado aquí? Y es que yo le he dicho, aquí está la necesidad. De hecho, esta iglesia me ayudaron a construirla migrantes de Michoacán, de Guerrero y de Guatemala. Sí hay seguridad en este momento, gracias al albergue, vienen los grupos de seguridad, pero antes había una seguridad nula, sigue habiendo grandes índices de violencia, mucha muerte y demás.
Pastor Gustavo and his wife coordinate all donations of clothing and food, which come mostly from people in Tijuana and UNICEF. The migrants are served 2 meals a day. Pastor Gustavo found a donor who installed a playground for the children. A small school offers them daily classes. He built this workshop where local women volunteer and teach migrant women how to make clothing. A group of local psychologists created art workshops to help the children cope with traumas they experience after living with so much uncertainty. Pastor Gustavo's most pressing concern is providing better housing conditions for these families.
La verdad es difícil dormir con tanta gente, a veces algunos están enfermos, entonces sí es muy importante que se termine la vivienda para cada uno de ellos. Sería de vital importancia que cada quien tuviera una vivienda, o al menos algunas familias en las viviendas que se están construyendo, ¿no?
5 years ago, Pastor Gustavo built a few small houses for migrant families, but that project transformed into something much bigger after a visit by 2 professors from the University of California, San Diego.
Cuando llegó Fona y me dice, ¿qué estás haciendo?, ¿no? Y yo le digo, bueno, estoy haciendo unas pequeñas casas, y me dijo, ¿cuánto te cuesta cada casa? Ya le dije cuánto me costaba terminada, y me dijo, Fona, yo te quiero ayudar. Te voy a buscar los fondos y te voy a dar fondos para que tú construyas.
Professor Fona Foreman is a political scientist at UCSD. She and her partner, architect Teddy Cruz, are the co-directors of UCSD's Center on Global Justice.
We had projects in Africa, South Asia, Latin America. But over time, we began to really focus on challenges right here in the border region in such close proximity to the campus. There's a slum of 95,000 people, just 25 minutes by car from our campus. And so I felt if we were going to really engage issues of poverty, we needed to focus here close to home. And we joined forces and began to think about how we could assemble, really meaningful interventions and partnerships here in the border region with communities that were facing so many of these global challenges right here.
They use urban planning theories and a new vision for architectural designs that include migrants to create a wide-reaching, sustainable housing and environmental project in Scorpion Canyon.
This is one of the most uneven, asymmetrical urban regions in the world. Some of the wealthiest real estate, as the one found in the edges of San Diego, is barely 20 minutes away from some of the most precarious and impoverished environments like the ones found in Tijuana in the Alacran Canyon. I began to challenge my own assumptions about what architecture is or what it could do or could be. So that's the reason a lot of our research began to orient itself to really confronting inequality.
Their project is called Community Stations. They're part of a network of field hubs located in disadvantaged neighborhoods in both San Diego and Tijuana. Philanthropists fund a $1.5 million budget. When finished, the upstairs part of this 3-floor structure will provide living spaces for migrant families. The ground floor will be dedicated to creating businesses where they can work. The goal: social and economic inclusion.
The project connects migrant housing to the places where migrants can participate in developing their own modes of sustainability, their own economy.
The design is inspired in part by the work of French architect and designer Jean Prouvé. He created ways of using mass-produced folded sheet metal for the construction of buildings. In the spirit of Prouvé, crews and foremen approached a Spanish-owned factory in Tijuana called Mecalux. It produces shelving systems. That design was re-engineered and is now used to build flexible structures for refugee housing, easily assembled by migrants.
We're interested in rethinking public space as a place of activity that is intentional, so that the community is welcomed to use that public space in order to have access to education, social program, and maybe facilitating job generation. So public space is not inert, it's not a neutral place. It is charged, it is injected with resources to mobilize social and economic sustainability.
The aim is to rethink policies that have led to unequal living conditions in a region that has been anything but sustainable. The red line on this map marks the US-Mexico border. The map shows how polluted water from communities like Scorpion Canyon crosses the border and contaminates water in Southern California.
This is a long-standing issue where vulnerable communities really are at the front lines of environmental challenges, and they have the least capacities to adapt to them. So environmental challenges tend to be a driver of deepening poverty. Just because you put a wall up doesn't mean that things that are happening on the other side of that wall are not impacting us on this side. That's a fantasy. And so, one of the major challenges that we face in this region are the shared, environmental challenges.
The visionary creators of the Refugee Housing Project visualize a future that includes the possibility of free movement of humans and nature in this binational space now separated by a metal fence.
Back in Tijuana, architect Teddy Cruz meets via internet with Mexican team members. They include architect Lorena Branks and construction manager Luis Sauceda. Careful notes are taken on both sides of the border. On a dirt road leading back to Scorpion Canyon, a member of Lorena's team brings a small load of cement and blocks for the project. Many of the construction workers are migrants who live in the church. Lorena shows us the bottom floor, where migrants will create their own workspaces.
Viene de Honduras, él viene con su esposa, su hijo. Él ya tiene ahorita trabajando con nosotros alrededor de 4 meses, más o menos, 5 meses.
We climb up 2 floors. The top level of the building will house dozens of migrant families. Lorena says the project includes plans to remake the hillsides and decrease threats of mudslides during the rainy season.
Entonces, evitar que toda el agua que llegue aquí nos arrastre las piedras y nos vaya a golpear. Por eso, como está así, se mandó hacia el centro y que la agua y las piedras que lleguen ahí, peguen ahí y eviten golpear el edificio. Toda el agua llegaba y hacía eso, ¿no?
She looks down the hill and imagines what this place will look like a decade from now. This innovative project has captured the attention of Tijuana city government officials. Now they're exploring ways to create drainage systems and pave the roads in Scorpion Canyon. And educational programs are being created to teach migrants how to protect the environment from garbage and contaminated water. This cross-border partnership is rooted in the idea that current policies are accelerating inequalities, and that will eventually harm residents on both sides of the border. Instead, they must find ways to advance together. Pastor Gustavo Banda can imagine a future that includes several of these structures, and he has come to think of the researchers in San Diego as part of this growing family.
Ellos están viendo por todos los migrantes que están aquí y no solo eso es el inicio nada más. Tiene un proyecto en conjunto de todo esto, un proyecto maravilloso.
Pastor Gustavo expects that climate change and political violence will spur the arrival of many more migrants to this place.
Entonces lo que queremos es tener un albergue que tenga una capacidad, digamos, para 5,000 personas. Entonces necesitamos bastante desarrollo en este lugar.